we're just happen to stand on a giant platform that can help accelerate that evolution. So that's kind of one of the biggest things that we bring to the table. Service, science, and innovation are always going to be a part of everything that we do. Even though some things still, there's tried and true, very simplistic ways to get things done. We're going to keep scratching, because of our resources, we're going to keep scratching at the newest technology, the newest ways, and vet it out and see, hey, is this something that we need to adopt culturally as a sport? One of the unique things is because we're the league, it's not like we're just competing with one team. We represent hundreds, almost 600 independent contractors. So what we do is for the greater good of the sport and for the league. So for us, interacting with coaches around the world and different fight teams around the world, not just them, but their opponents, and at different times, it's a big part of what we do. And it's kind of a unique, if you're coming from a coaching background, it's a very unique situation to be in, to interact with so many different coaching staffs, knowing that they're going to compete against each other at some point.
Yeah, I think it's cool that kind of the overall mission statement, right, is that the UFC as the governing body essentially is interested in building all of it, that the rising tide of all the teams, any way everyone gets better is better for the whole.
Sure. I think if you want the visibility of a sport to continue to increase, and you want that sport to climb into the top 3 most televised sports in the world, you got to grow the whole thing, not just your one little slice of it. And that was kind of the vision by our upper executives.
Let's see what this place
when the athletes come in, the entire first floor is dedicated to health and human performance. We'll get down some different wings, but kind of the heart of it are the locker rooms. So from the locker rooms, the athletes can quickly get out into the training spaces. There's some quick grab and go nutrition options. Our team typically has people stationed here to help out with stuff around those lines. One of the nice things, I'll just throw a quick tidbit in on the nutrition and supplement side. We have very few, and in some genres, none, exclusive partnerships with these companies. So it gives us the ability to get very unique and selective with different supplements, different types of food options and things. When you think about the kind of people we're servicing, they're coming from so many different nutritional backgrounds. Like we have some guys that only eat halal meat. We have others that are vegan. We have vegetarians. We have every food allergy you can imagine. So just for them to have sort of the looseness to be able to dive into the industry however they need to provide service is pretty unique, because most of the bigger entities I've ever been a part of, it's like, hey,
metrics. One person does the whole thing, and that's what you have.
Right. So being able to tap into companies like Thorne and P3 and Fuel for Fire and a variety, we can have the ability to do that and not be stepping on anyone's toes. We're gonna slide in right through this door here. So this is the men's locker room. The women's locker room looks almost identical. It is a little bit smaller. That's not a gender equity thing, that's a usage thing. We have our entire 600 person roster, only about 33% of them are women. Of that entire roster, I forget the exact numbers, but something like 30% in total reside in North America. So the majority of them are coming from overseas. What you'd expect to see in a locker room: lockers, showers. This also plays a little bit of a role in the weight cutting process too. So we always keep an official check weight scale in here as well. And we'll get back into the recovery areas where the saunas and things lie, and you'll kind of see how the flow of that works when we got guys in cutting. Well, one thing about a lot of places I've ever been, you come out of the locker room, it's like, oh, I need to go and use the sauna. So you're half naked, you got to walk across the gym, you got to go right
by the front desk.
So connecting everything, exactly. There's exits, both men's and women's locker rooms, out the back to get into the recovery areas back here. It's all wet floor as well, so they can get this as messy as they want, and it's not a big deal. So currently we have a single person cryo chamber as well as an infrared light bed. These are
red light bed, interesting.
Yeah. So
does it work like a sauna, or does it?
No, this guy in particular is, so it works exactly like a tanning bed. The difference is instead of a UV bulb, it's got an infrared bulb. So the red light acts as a vasodilator, particularly like an anti-inflammatory mechanism, just like a hot tub. The difference that we have seen, and you get all kinds of studies and stuff from these companies as they build and develop these things, but one of the biggest things that has come to fruition that they've told us about, but also the fighters feel it, when you get out of the hot tub, you want to take a nap. Well, a lot of times these guys have 2 and 3 training sessions a day. So say you got some hard grappling rounds in the morning, you want to do some recovery, and then you may have a sparring session at 4 in the afternoon. This can be a good option, anti-inflammatory option in between training sessions on those types of days. prior to going to another practice, because they come out of it, they feel rejuvenated, but they don't feel like taking a nap.
Yeah, you don't have the sluggish hot tub. Right.
Now, with that being said, it's got a little fan on it and it does hum when they're in there. We have had some guys that literally fall asleep in there. We lift the lid, shut the light off, and they're like alert, like awake. It's kind of weird, and I've felt that sensation myself climbing out of it. It's nice because it's non-invasive and it's a 15 to 20 minute session. That's about it.
And what do you think about the cryo stuff?
So personally, I use it for a couple different things. We do have some that they do not have the ability to relax in the cold tub. It's like if you can't relax in the cold tub, you're not going to get the parasympathetic response that you're trying to get out of a recovery modality. They sit in the water and you see them
and never get it together.
Yeah. So a lot of times this can be almost like training wheels for that. It is cold. I mean, it's really cold. And some of them even struggle with that type of environment. We can at least get them used to some cold immersion therapy. And then hopefully eventually the plan is to walk them down.
Because that's the way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now the nice thing about this pod is it has stages. So we can be a very gentle cold, which unfortunately gentle cold is still like a -180, down to a deeper cold, which is on this machine is about a -360. But it'll also contrast as well. So it'll suck all the cold nitrogen infused air out and it'll pump warm air in. It'll warm them back up.
That's super cool. Again.
So it's not as, in my eyes anyway, as penetrating or deep tissue as it is contrasting from hot and cold, going from a 106 tub to a 52 degree tub. Not quite the same, but it's a good introductory apparatus. Now, I've had guys like Cub Swanson tell me, like there's days where, let's say he just got beat up at practice the day before, especially guys with a lot of mileage. They get achy, knuckles are achy, shoulders are achy, necks are sore. Prior to, say, a sparring session the following day, he's like, I'll jump in that. It's essentially like a full body biofreeze right before practice. And then you go in and he's like,
right tool for the right job.
Yep. So that's another kind of situation that we can use it for.
That's a really, really good move.
So the wet area is back here. When we do have events in Vegas, this is where a lot of the cutting goes down. There's a steam room directly behind you. Most of the guys use a dry sauna for cutting, steam more for recovery. Our dry sauna goes up to 205, 206, something like that. It's hot. Our hot and cold tubs, hot's on the left. We keep it at 106. We keep our chiller on the right at 52 degrees.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, it's chilly. You know, these temperatures and things, they're set off of what the majority of the literature says. So I know you can definitely endure water that's colder than that. You can definitely endure water that's hotter than that.
But that's not the point.
That's not the point. The point is to create an effective modality that we can maintain year round and not kill someone.
As much cold water stuff as I've done, it amazes me that like people will still do the like one-up-ya thing.
Oh yeah.
And be like, well, I blah, blah, blah. I'm like, 32 is it, guy. After that, it's a solid. Like you didn't get colder water. There's a limit.
Same thing. Like you go so hot, that's just smoke.
It just boils. Right.
That's not gonna do the same.
You're in the steam room then.
That's funny. That's funny. So this is our underwater treadmill. It provides a couple different things.
So cool, man.
Obviously, the number one use is a rehab tool. So we get, like any other contact sport, we get a lot of soft tissue injuries, ACLs, MCLs, ankle injuries, broken feet and legs from kicking and kneeing and all that kind of stuff. The nice thing about this is it's on a hydraulic platform, so I can raise it all the way up flush with the ground. Someone's coming fresh off an ACL, I can walk them onto it and then lower them down.
Oh, nice.
Then obviously, depending on what stage in the rehab process we're in, the deeper I lower them down, the more buoyant they become. I can unload them more. This one's cool because we can do anything from introductory gait we actually have a post apparatus that mounts in on the sides that comes across so they can hold a handle if they need to. And we can start that belt as just creeping, right, working on pushing through the toes and extending through the leg. Back into eventually full-on running, which we can crank this belt upwards of 10-ish miles an hour. On top of that, we have 2 jet streams.
10 miles an hour in there has got to be cooking.
So it's different because when you're buoyant, you feel the belt moving, but you also float a little bit. So it's not that intense. But what we can increase the intensity with are the 2 jet streams in front. So now we add current to the water, and you have to labor through the current on top of pushing the belt. So it's a nice little progressive overload feature that we can add in when we're rehabbing somebody.
Now, will you ever use it just non-rehab, like
Yes.
for like HIIT training? Or?
Well, actually, what I'll use it for more than anything is our heavyweights. Our heavyweight cutoff is 265 pounds. So when we're trying to do a long-term weight descent plan with a heavyweight, I don't really want our 290 pounders, 280 pounders just packing mileage like a boxer on the road. So we can use, and we have a couple other tools, an Alter G treadmill, we can use Airdyne bikes, but if they like to run, this is another apparatus that we can use with them.
Nice ground contact times.
Yes, that's it. Back to your question around high intensity though, one of the ones that we do like to do commonly, we'll keep one jet shut off and we'll have the other ones set up like full speed. So essentially we'll have them churn through the full speed one to the front, slide over, and then their recovery is just chilling towards the back. And then we can add like paddles and things.
Wow.
To
and then you've got the monitors for cameras, right?
Yep. So there's a 4 camera system that pops up here. There's a camera on each wall, in front, from the sides, particularly when we're going through gait rehabilitation, to be able to bisect them laterally from the frontal plane and take a look at, like I said, what their digits are doing, what does their alignment look like, or, you know, is there
in real time, and your athlete can see it.
You can see it. We can say, look, man, you see how your knee is opening up this way? Let's make that a little more linear, and then they can take a look and make an adjustment.
That's a really cool tool.
And like if you piss in the water or something, we're like, dude, the yellow cloud, that was you. Like, you know, you did that. So we'll make our way, we'll get out on the main training floor. This is our main training floor, this is the S&C portion, our PT section as well. So with our PT team, they're pretty diverse. So our head of physical therapy, she's a doctorate of PT. We also have a doctor of chiropractics on staff. We have a couple ATCs on staff, and then they continue to kind of grow out and build out as well. She's got a team here. She also has a team in Shanghai, China at our other institute. And then they also have remote resources depending on where we're having our fights at, things like that. We have partnerships with some of the bigger surgical hospitals like HSS. There's a couple of others in different continents as well that assist, especially when we have emergency, you know, cracked orbitals, all that kind of stuff, right on the fly. In the main training space, we'll get into the weight room stuff there. We also have a little auxiliary turf area as well, warm-ups, any sort of linear speed agility work, that kind of thing. I won't say too much about it, but this whole thing's getting a facelift, so it's gonna look quite a bit different.
I'm very excited to come back out.
So, you know, aside from training apparatuses, there's quite a bit of diagnostic equipment in here as well. Those, if you spin around real quick, those first 2 platforms are equipped with bilateral force plates mounted to the ground.
Whoa!
So being able to measure peak force, to be able to measure RSI, counter movement jump power, things like that, kind of on a readily daily basis is definitely unique. Again, another aspect that's going to get overhauled quite a bit. In 4 years, this kind of technology has grown a lot.
Yeah, I saw the clips of this getting used in Shanghai.
Yeah.
For the combine out there, just doing that.
So this system, as amazing as it is, it's pretty manual.
Maximum pull.
Yeah. It's pretty manual. In order for us to run assessments, like I have to select an assessment, I have to select your profile, build your profile. We'd run through that assessment. If we were gonna say we do the mid-thigh pull, if we were gonna do a counter movement jump after reset it, go back in, break this down. The ones in Shanghai, they're all auto recognition. So when you step on the plate, it doesn't matter what we do, the software is gonna auto recognize it. So if you do a counter movement jump, it's gonna say counter movement jump, this is Matt Vincent's, blah, 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 blah. If you then do a non-counter movement jump, you come down, you freeze, and then you jump, it's gonna say Matt Vincent, non-counter movement jump. If you do an ISO pull, Matt Vincent, isometric pull force. So it just gets, everything just gets a lot more seamless.
Cheap, affordable equipment, I assume.
Oh yeah, 40 grand a pair.
Right.
The nice thing too, you know, these PCs they're awesome. They're all touchscreen. That's great. They're in the way. I mean, we bump into them with barbells and stuff all the time. The ones we have in Shanghai, they're mounted behind the mirrors in the wall.
Whoa! So they're integrated like a smart.
Fades. Yeah, it fades into the mirror. So it's much more seamless. It's I'll
be very excited to come back in a year and see where we are.
In just 4 years' time, man, and especially in the sports world, innovation around technology just goes through the roof. Inside the little bubble here, this is our Hypoxic Lab. It kind of serves two purposes. We can create a hypoxic environment. There's a filtration system mounted up top, so we can take this room as high as 22,000 feet. Not that we would ever need to go that high. That's like Mount Everest. But we do have fights in places like Mexico City and Denver that offer a 7,500 to 9,000 foot elevation. So we can do some.
I've never even considered that you'd be fighting at elevation.
Yeah, so we can do some acclimatizing in there. This room is not used solo when we do that. We also partner with the same company, Hypoxico, to have a tent delivered to the fighter's house so they can sleep at altitude as well. So you got to have more, the idea around, increasing oxygenation of your blood, you got to have more exposure to it.
It's weird what's allowed to accomplish the same goal, right?
Yep.
Sleeping in a tent, totally fine. You can't put your own blood back in. That's not cool.
That. We also have access to Mount Charleston, which is about 45 minutes down the road, that offers another 10 to 14,000 foot of elevation. So we have a lot of fighters and their mitt coaches. They'll go up there and hit mitts or go for runs.
So you can drive up.
You can drive up. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So when we're strategizing a hypoxic training camp, there's multiple pieces, not just this room, that go into planning that out.
And that big outdoor turf areas.
Yeah, so we have these 4 big bay doors, which are hydraulic driven. We can open them up. The weather in Vegas is awesome about 90% of the time, so we spend a lot of time outside. We also have a 2-lane 50-meter track on the end of the property there that goes down towards the back. So if we are doing any linear running, we want a harder surface. We do have an Olympic track surface out there. But yeah, and then the rest of what you see out there, there's an amphitheater, there's some covered meeting spaces. They encourage a lot of our staff here to, when they have meetings, not to just use our general conference rooms, but to use some of the outdoor conference spaces.
That's why we built it.
Yep. And then the idea around the structure, it's kind of built like a horseshoe. For the first time in the company's history, having everyone else all on one campus, they wanted a lot of our executives in marketing and in the legal teams, production teams, to be able to keep their eye on the prize. If you see fighters out here training, that's why we're here.
That does make that level of synergy to be able to that's why we're.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really drew and attracted me to the company, was just how inclusive they were trying to make everything. So it's pretty cool. We can go, let's head upstairs. We'll show you the MMA floor. So just so you know, this is not a one-man show. I don't do this all by myself. One of our coaches is out of town right now. This is Matt Crowley.
Matt.
He's
Matt, nice to meet you.
Yep, this is Matt. Nice to meet you. Matt is one of our strength and conditioning coordinators. So he manages another 30 to 40 fighters, both locally and remotely. So one of the cool things, all of our coaches have quite a bit of autonomy in terms of how they address. I mentioned a lot about individuality earlier. And so you can't just have the tools to individualize, you have to have more software too. So we're fortunate with the staff that we get to recruit and the guys and girls we get to recruit to help out with that. So there's a little Hall of Fame. By no means is that updated. It's quite a bit bigger nowadays. We've had several classes inducted since this thing was built. That'd be part of the renovation, as well as updating some of this.
Don Fry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He still comes around too.
It's so awesome. That fight where him and that dude just punch each other in the face.
Over and over.
Yeah, just grab each other by the back of the head.
Handcuffed to each other.
Incredible.
So this is a full-size octagon. This is a 30 by 30, so this is what they actually compete in. The one that it's in Apex that we've been competing is a smaller octagon. It's a 25 by 25.
And this is 30?
This is 30.
Okay, so 5 less feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you ask the guys.
Oh, I bet it feels tiny.
It feels like a phone booth.
Yeah, you can't get away from anyone.
In there, they looked like Rock'em Sock'em robots in the actual game, where you got that tiny little 2 big dudes in there. That's what it looked like. There is a Vicon camera system mounted around as well for motion analysis, which we've used in a few different studies and things. And there's also a full production camera setup as well. So they'll do clips. We do practice clips for guys that come here and train. Video analysis and review is very new to this sport. For the most part, video review would be like one guy standing on the side with his iPhone capturing some of your clips. Well, now we have a 360-degree view of what's going on during that. So you can take a guy like mid-kick. We can have software, then we can, kind of like on ESPN, we can kind of spin it and rotate it.
Like the Matrix.
You can look at him from the back. Here's what
incredible
support foot is doing. So that's been a huge tool. And then having people on staff that can help clip some of those video clips of, say they're here from the UK, they can clip some of their training, take it back with them, we'll put it on a drive.
It's great.
This is our wrestling area.
It's such a big area.
Obviously we're a cage sport, so the cage is kind of appropriate to have around the perimeter. Learning how to wrestle on a cage is a whole nother skill set in itself. Very different than an open mat wrestling type of feel, which a lot of our guys, whether you're coming from a Greco or a freestyle background, Sambo, there's no cage. So you got to learn how to work the wall. It can be both advantageous and disadvantageous. I mean, you can be in a bad spot, but you can be in a really offensive spot on the cage as well. So
I think it's still neat within the sport that you'll still see someone who's a karate specialist do well. And it's not just the guys that have the full MMA now background.
the evolution of well-rounded martial artists is definitely increasing. One of the biggest contributors is the fact that nowadays we have so many MMA gyms. You got kids at 14, 15, 16 years old that are they're getting their feet wet in MMA, not just wrestling or not just kickboxing. Whereas back in the day, you had a specialist who then had to adopt that other skill set at 25 years old or 30 years old. Now you got a 15-year-old that's getting the entire gambit right off the jump. So,
and under one roof now. Like the resources are so different. Like we were talking with a friend of ours who fights UFC, and she was saying that, growing up in Australia, that she's like, I had a 90-minute drive somewhere to go box, and then I had a 45-minute drive from there somewhere to go wrestle, and then I got to the States, and I'm like, you mean everything happens here, and I can work here? This is great.
Yep, we still get that in the States sometimes. There's a few of the remote guys that I work with, and they live in Maine or something. They're like, yeah, dude, I mean, for me to get to a good jiu-jitsu school, I gotta drive an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, man.
Yeah, just really the last thing is just our media space. So we have a full conference room here. We do fight releases. We also do like educational events in here as well, NSCA conferences, things like that. There's a giant screen that drops down, so we do a lot of remote stuff with our crews in Shanghai. There's 4 translation booths in the back. We get fighters from all over the world. They don't all speak English, so if we are doing anything educational around training or educational around finance or social media or anything like that, we typically have.
Oh, so you guys will work with the guys on finances and.
Oh yeah, they give them resources. We have retreats and things like that. Our partnerships team helps them out quite a bit with getting them resources around that kind of stuff. It's always handy to have the translators around whenever we got crews coming in from Dagestan or from Brazil or you name it.
How would you find coaching those guys in different languages?
And not too bad. Most of the time they'll have an interpreter with them. Most of the time. And then outside of that, I mean, we've got one of our staff here speaks some Mandarin, so that helps. We've usually got people around that speak a little bit of Portuguese. I know a little bit of Spanish. Portuguese and Spanish aren't all that different, so enough to get by. And then the rest of it, you got to use your coaching intellect a little bit. You got to do a lot more modeling, a lot more, demoing, and which, however you got to slice it. And for the most part, I'd say 99% of them are working their ass off to try to learn English because they want to be an international star. And if you want to be an international star, you got to learn the most popular languages that are out there. When you look at people like Valentina Shevchenko, she speaks like 5 different languages. She has no trouble getting around. Doesn't matter what country she's in. She's super independent.
Well, I can barely handle English.
I'm with you. Yeah, same.
So that's it. It's the UFC Institute, walking around, checking out all the strength and conditioning stuff with Bo. I want to thank, dude, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. I know we'll see each other at Sorenex this summer. And Luke Lewis being with us as well. And thank you guys for watching. And that's what the UFC Institute looks like. This place is awesome.